Imagine a closed box mystery. I mean, truly. Someone walks into a room, the camera sees them go in, but there is zero footage of them ever walking out. It's just an impossible riddle.
And that is the 17-year-long enigma we're diving into today, the vanishing of Brian Shaffer.
Brian was, what, a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University? A really promising guy.
And on April 1st, 2006, he disappeared from one single place, the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a bar right near the OSU campus.
Yeah, and the sources we've pulled together for this, you're talking police records, official releases, and just this. And there's incredible amount of research on community forums. They all point to the same paradox.
How does a 6'2" man in a pretty distinctive shirt just vanish from a place that was supposedly covered by cameras?
Right, so our mission today is to really dig into the few very strange clues that are left.
And use them to weigh, the two big possibilities. Was this a perfectly planned disappearance, or was it foul play that was just helped along by an architectural blind spot?
It's a case where the tech that was supposed to see everything just saw nothing at all.
It really is.
So let's start with Brian's mindset. Where was he at, psychologically, when this all went down? Because it wasn't just a simple night out.
No, not at all. His world had been turned upside down. His mother, Renee, had just died from cancer in March of that year.
She was the one who inspired his medical career.
Exactly. People close to him said the loss just rocked his world. So the timing of all this it's incredibly poignant.
But at the same time, he had plans, right? He wasn't just adrift.
No, he was doing well in his second year of med school. And crucially, 2 days after he disappeared, he was supposed to be on a flight to Miami.
With his girlfriend, Alexis.
With Alexis. It was a trip his mom had actually given him for Christmas.
Wow.
So Friday, March 31st, he's out with friends, including a guy named Clint. They're doing a pretty typical bar crawl, and they end up at the Ugly Tuna Saloona. It's this popular upstairs bar.
Okay, so the key window. It's all about what happens around 2 a.m. on Saturday, April 1st.
Right. Police confirm that surveillance footage shows Brian on an escalator going up to the bar. Then, around 1:57, maybe 2 a.m., he's seen for a moment outside the main entrance.
Just chatting with two women.
Exactly. And this is the moment that defines the whole mystery. The footage shows him turning and apparently re-entering the bar.
And that is the last confirmed sighting of him ever.
That's it. A few minutes later, his friends can't find him. They call him, they look around, and eventually they just leave. They figured he'd walked home.
A totally reasonable assumption.
Of course.
But then Monday morning comes, Brian misses that flight to Miami.
His dad, Randy, gets the call, and Brian is officially reported missing. And at his apartment, nothing. No wallet, no keys, nothing to suggest he planned to just leave.
Which brings us right to the heart of it, this CCTV paradox.
Right. Early on, police were totally adamant. They said the bar's security system covered every single viable exit. He could not have left without being recorded.
It's the ultimate locked room puzzle, isn't it? The main entrance was covered, and there was a back hallway.
Yeah, for employee access, for the band to load equipment. But police insisted if he used either of those exits, he should have been on camera.
Their confidence in the technology was so high. And that makes you ask, what happens when that technology fails?
And that's where the technical deep dive gets really fascinating, because when you look at surveillance systems from, the mid-2000s, the weakness isn't really the camera. It's the human brain.
Oh, interesting. So it's not a hardware problem.
Not necessarily. See, back in 2006, you didn't have these modern AI programs that can scan for a person. Investigators had to sit and manually watch hours and hours of pretty grainy video.
And that's where something called inattentional blindness comes in.
Exactly. You're a person, you're tasked with watching hours of boring footage looking for one specific thing. Your brain gets overloaded.
You're staring right at the screen, but you don't actually register what you're seeing.
You might miss it. A quick dash to a door, a moment where a crowd of people block the view. It could be a 10-second event that your brain just filters out because of that cognitive load.
So the police saying he wasn't on the tape, so he didn't leave, that might just be a mistake.
It might be them failing to account for human error. The lack of footage isn't proof he was trapped. It might just be proof that the person watching the tape missed something.
Okay, that changes things. So if the cameras aren't foolproof, the next piece of evidence should clarify things. But it doesn't.
No, the cell phone data just makes everything weirder.
So initially, the phone data seemed normal.
Yeah, his friend Clint tried to call him at 2:01 a.m., right after he was last seen. Phone was off or had no signal. Totally normal for a late night in a crowded bar.
But that quiet didn't last.
No. On Monday evening, April 3rd, police get Singular Wireless to put a pinging service on his phone, and suddenly, it starts talking to cell towers.
Wait, talking, so it was on.
It was on, and it was charged, and it kept communicating, off and on, for the next 30 days.
30 days. What does that even suggest?
Well, it immediately throws up two possibilities. Either Brian was alive and, carefully keeping the phone charged but not using it.
Or someone else had it.
Or someone else had the phone and was keeping it charged.
And the pings were moving, right? This wasn't just sitting in one spot.
Not at all. For the first few weeks, the pings were pretty local, the West Campus area. But later in April, the phone showed clear movement out to the West Belt and Hilliard areas.
So they did physical searches based on that.
They did. They searched an area near Scioto Darby Creek Road. It really blows a hole in the idea that something happened to him right there at the bar. The phone was mobile.
Okay, and then there's the final, just confounding piece of this.
The final ring. 5 months later, September. Alexis, his girlfriend, had been calling his phone every single day. And every day, it went straight to voicemail.
Until one day.
Until one day it rang. Just for 2 rings, then back to voicemail.
I can't even imagine what that must have felt like for her. Just devastating.
Was it a signal? A mistake? A glitch? The phone company couldn't say for sure. But the best guess is that the phone was briefly powered on, maybe charged just enough for the network to find it, and then it died again.
It just fuels that theory that someone else had the phone.
For months after he vanished, yes.
Okay, so if we're entertaining the idea that someone else was involved, we have to go back inside the bar. We have to talk about Clint.
Right. Brian and his friend Clint had apparently had some kind of verbal argument inside the bar earlier that night.
Which doesn't mean anything on its own, but it's context.
It's context. And when the police asked Clint to take a polygraph test, he refused on the advice of his lawyer.
And look, that's his legal right, but in a case like this, it's going to draw a lot of public scrutiny.
Of course. But we have to stick to the facts here. Police have always said they found no evidence to investigate him further. He's never been a suspect.
And we have to remember the personal toll here. Alexis, his girlfriend, she later said it was just easier to accept that someone else had done something to him.
Right. Rather than believe he would just leave his future behind. Her belief in foul play really shaped a lot of the public conversation around the case.
And that conviction leads us straight to the two big conflicting theories. So let's start with the one she didn't want to believe.
Yeah.
Voluntary disappearance.
The idea that he just walked away, this got a lot of traction because of a MySpace post Brian had made. He wrote something about wanting to be on a beach, smoking with Bob Marley.
So people ran with that, the idea that he just took off for Florida to become a quote-unquote beach bum.
But for that to be true, the amount of planning involved is just staggering. He'd have had to perfectly stage an exit to fool cameras, leave zero digital trail, and then just abandon his family, who were grieving his mother.
It seems so unlikely.
Which is why so many people, like Alexis, favor the other theory. Abduction or homicide.
And this is where that deep dive into the CCTV footage comes back. Specifically, about another person in the bar.
Yes, the suspicious man. Online sleuths have focused intensely on a muscular guy in a gray t-shirt who was near the escalators right before Brian vanished.
And what was so suspicious about him?
Well, according to some analysis, he's positioned in a way that lets him watch the entrance. He seems to be actively avoiding eye contact.
Like disguising behavior.
Exactly. Fiddling with the handrails, a kind of nervous stomping. It all suggests someone who is waiting, observing, and trying really hard not to look like he was.
And there's a more specific foul play theory about how it could have happened so fast, right?
Yeah, this theory suggests Brian might have been drugged. Friends said his behavior had gotten a little confused. There was a weird moment where he supposedly kissed Clint's neck.
Which some people link to the effects of something like GHB. Confusion, loss of inhibition.
Right. So if he was drugged and disoriented when he re-entered the bar, an abduction could have happened very quickly in that tiny 3 or 4 minute window.
But we still come back to the same problem.
The structural how.
Whether he walked out on his own or was carried out, how did he get out unseen? Where was the blind spot?
And this is where we get to probably the most plausible but also most contested theory of all, the construction zone exit.
The building next door was under construction at the time.
Heavy construction, and this supposedly created a huge security vulnerability for the Ugly Tuna.
Okay, so walk us through this weak point.
So the theory, which comes from rumors among former employees and construction workers, is that there was a temporary plywood barrier hidden behind some scaffolding. This barrier apparently led into a service corridor, which led to emergency stairs and then out into a parking garage.
It's a path that would completely bypass the main camera-covered exits.
Completely. And crucially, it explains why the main service door was locked from the inside when police checked. He wouldn't have used that door. He or someone with him could have slipped through this temporary construction corridor.
Now, we have to be really careful here, because the idea of that architectural flaw is compelling. But some of the other claims tied to this theory are questionable.
Extremely questionable. The structural flaw itself is a possible answer to the how, but later claims, like an alleged photo showing Clint Florence in that construction area, those were pretty quickly debunked by the community as being, AI slop or just straight up misinformation.
So we have to separate the plausible idea of a hidden exit from the unverified accusations.
Absolutely.
So that flaw, combined with the real possibility of human error in reviewing the CCTV, brings us right back to where we started.
A case stuck between two impossibilities.
Either Brian Shaffer pulled off one of the most sophisticated vanishing acts of all time,
Or he was the victim of foul play, aided by a hidden doorway and the simple fact that the human eye can't watch everything all the time.
The search, of course, continues. In 2021, police released an age progression image of what Brian might look like at 42.
And the Ohio Attorney General, Dave Yost, said something really important. Hope doesn't have an expiration date. Every missing person counts.
That hope rests on someone, somewhere, remembering one small detail. I want to leave you with a final thought, though, that kind of connects this case to today. We live in a world that is so saturated with surveillance, way more than in 2006.
Oh, cameras are everywhere now, constantly recording.
But the Brian Shaffer case shows us that the real failure point isn't always the technology. It's our ability to process the information it gives us. If investigators in 2006 missed one 10-second event because of cognitive overload, what are we missing today with 100 times more data?
That's a chilling thought.
The haunting question's still the same. Was Brian's disappearance the result of brilliant, premeditated cunning? Or was it just a single, unseen moment, lost forever in a river of surveillance data that no one could ever watch closely enough? Something for you to mull over.